Yes, very good afternoon, students. In the previous session, we have seen the characteristics of refractories and the introduction of refractories and the properties of refractories. So just let us recall what is meant by the refractories and the properties of refractories. So refractory is nothing but any material which can withstand at high temperature without softening or suffering a deformation in shape. So that means even by overheating also these are not becoming soft. So these can withstand at high temperature and these are not changing its shape when we are heating it. That type of materials are called the refractories. So the main properties of the refractories are a refractoriness under load, dimensional stability, chemical inertness, thermal expansion, thermal conductivity, porosity, thermal spalling, and resistance to abrasion or corrosion, electrical conductivity, heat capacity, texture, and permeability. So among these properties, around 3 to 4 properties are very important for the short questions. The first one is the refractoriness. Refractoriness, it is the characteristic or it is a property of refractory. And next one, refractoriness under load. So by using refractoriness under load, we can tell at what temperature the refractories are becoming soft and these are changing its shape. And the next one is the porosity. Porosity is nothing but the number of pores in the refractory materials. And what happens by increasing the porosity and decreasing the porosity in the refractory materials? So we know that by increasing the number of pores, the strength of the refractory materials are decreasing. But whereas by decreasing the porosity, the refractory material strength is increasing. So that is about porosity. And the next one is the thermal spalling. Thermal spalling is nothing but the cracks are forming on the refractory materials due to sudden heating or excess heating or peeling of the external layer on the refractory material by excess heating or the sudden heating. That is called the thermal spalling. So these are the main important questions in the properties of the refractories. So today I am going to explain you how to synthesize the refractories. So what are the steps do we have in the synthesis of the refractories? So let us see the manufacturing of refractories. So we have around 8 steps, 8 continuous steps in the preparation of the refractories. One is the crushing, grinding, screening, storage, mixing, molding, and drying and the firing. So these are the 8 continuous steps in the preparation of the refractories. So the same step we are following in the preparation of the bricks also, because one of the example of the refractory is the brick. So the same steps are involving in the preparation of the bricks also. In the next class, we will see how many types of bricks do we have, the refractory bricks. So that we will see in the next class. So first let us see step-by-step process in the manufacturing of refractories. So the first step is the crushing. In the crushing, raw material in the form of big lumps are crushed to about 25 mm size. So initially how the raw material is? The raw material is in the form of a big rocks or in the big lumps. So what we are doing? We are crushing that into 25 mm size, 25 millimeter size. Yes, so that is the crushing. So initially what we are doing? The lumps, the big lumps or the big rocks of the raw material is crushing into 25 millimeter size. That is the crushing. And the second step is the grinding. So whatever we crushed in the step 1, that crushed material are grinded and grinding machine down to 200 mesh size. So how the grinding machine, the sieve size, the sieve is nothing but mesh here, the sieve size should be 200. Yes, so we need to take the 200 size of the mesh in this, in the grinding material or the grinding machine, and there we need to grind the crushing material, that is called the grinding process. And the third step is screening. In the purify the refractory raw materials and remove unwanted material from the raw material, and this is done by settling, magnetic separation and the chemical methods. So we have seen already the screening in the water treatment. So the screening is nothing but we are passing through the screens. Even in the screening also we are using the meshes or the sieves. Yes. So what is the purpose of screens here? The screens are removing the unwanted impurities or the unwanted materials. Yes. So that is screening process. So छन्नी बोलते हैं अपन. So that is screens. Yes. So by using screens we can remove the unwanted materials. So let us again read the screening process. The purify the refractory raw materials and remove unwanted material from the raw materials, and this is done by settling, magnetic separation and the chemical method. So the settling process is nothing but we need to settle for the long time. Yes. And the next one is the magnetic separation. By using the magnets, we can separate the unwanted impurities or the unwanted materials. And the last method is the chemical method. That means by adding the chemicals, we are removing the unwanted materials in the screening process. So what is the screening process? Removing the unwanted materials from the raw materials after the crushing and the grinding. So in the screening process, we have the three continuous steps. One is the settling, magnetic separation and the chemical method. In the settling, we can remove the all high density impurities or the big sized impurities. And in the magnetic separation, by using the magnets, we can remove the unwanted impurities. And in the chemical method, by adding the chemicals, we can remove the unwanted materials. And the next one is the storage process. After screening and mineral dressing, pure material is stored in storage bins with bucket elevators. So what we are doing after crushing, grinding and the screening process, we are taking the buckets, the big buckets or the big bins. There we are storing the raw material after the crushing, grinding and the screening process. Yes. So the raw material is placing in the bins or the buckets. And the next step is the mixing. It is done so that proper distribution of the plastic material throughout the mass takes place. This makes molding easier. So how we are mixing this? It is done so that proper distribution of the plastic materials throughout the mass takes place. So this makes molding easier. So for molding, what we are doing, we are adding some plastic materials also. Yes. So how we are mixing the raw materials and the plastic materials, these are mixing with each other. Even we are using the foam or we are using the alkaline agents also to increase the strength of the materials. And for increasing the molding capacity also we are adding these. That is the mixing process. And the next one is the molding. Molding may be done either manually or mechanically by the application of high pressure. So we have some equipments for molding. So in the molding we have the molds. So whatever the shape we need, we can get the desired shape by placing in the molds. Yes. So either we can do manually or the mechanically. That means either by using the hands or by using the instruments, we can mold into desired shape. And hand molding produces refractories of low density and low strength. So that means whatever the process we are doing manually, from that process we will get the refractories with low density and the low strength. But whereas the mechanical molding produces refractories of high density and the strength. That means if we doing the molding by using the equipments, that means by using the instruments, we will get the high density and the high strength refractory materials. Yes. So that is the manual process and the mechanical process difference. Yes. So we will get more strength in the mechanical molding process rather than the hand molding process. So these are the 6 continuous steps. So first step is the crushing, grinding, screening, storage, mixing and the molding. So let us see the next step. But before that, in order to increase the density and the strength of the refractory by mechanical molding, the de-airing of refractory material is essential. That means, so before doing the molding process in the mechanically, that means in the equipment, what we are doing, we must to do the de-airing process of the refractory material. So de-airing is nothing but removing the air inside of the refractory, that means raw material. So if any air is present, this is like 4 only. If any air is present inside of the refractory, the strength of the refractory is less and the density of the refractory material will be less. So whatever the air is there in the refractory, that we must remove before drying and before firing. Before, before making the final refractory material, we must do the de-airing process. So in order to increase the density and the strength of the refractory by mechanical molding, the de-airing of refractory material is essential. So the de-airing is done by applying vacuum through vents in the molds. So by applying the pressure, by using the vacuums, we can remove all the air inside of the raw material. So that is the first process. And the second process is by allowing air inside the void space in the refractory to go out by decreasing the rate of pressure application and release by air. So what we are doing, initially we are sending air inside. So after sending air inside and afterwards by applying the pressure on the raw material, we can remove all the air inside of the raw material. And the third one is by double pressing. That means even by single pressing process also still some air is present inside of the refractory material. So to remove all the air inside of the refractory material, we must do the double pressing process. So in the double pressing process, we can remove all the air inside of the refractory material. So the material is first pressed and allowed to crack. Then it is pressed again so as to close the voids. Yes. So we are doing the pressing process for twice. That is the double pressing process. So we are doing the de-airing process by using the 3 methods. The first one is by applying the vacuum, that means by applying the pressure, that is a single pressing process. And in the second process, we are sending the air and getting the air outside by applying the pressure. And the third one is a by double pressing process. And the next step is the drying. So if any moisture is present in the refractory material, we must remove all the moisture inside of the refractory material by using the drying process. So drying, removal of moisture is done under well set conditions of humidity and temperature depending upon the type of refractory. Drying is usually carried out in tunnel dryers. So we are having the tunnel dryers. In the tunnel dryers, we are placing the refractory material to remove all the moisture in the refractory material. So that is the drying process. And the last step is the firing. So in the firing, what we are doing, how the bricks are synthesizing. Finally, we are placing the molded refractories, molded bricks in the fire to get the finalized brick, to get the complete finished brick. Yes. So finally, what we are doing the firing process. So even in the refractory also, we are doing the firing process. To stabilize and strengthen the structure of refractories, firing is done. So in normal drying process, we can't get high strengthened refractory material. So to get high strengthened refractory material, the firing is essential. The bricks are generally fired at a temperature as high as or higher than their use temperature. That means compared to their melting point or compared to their temperature, we are increasing the temperature of the refractory material in the firing process. So in the refractories, in the firing process, what we are doing, we are applying more than the pressure of the, more than the temperature of the refractories. So it is done in tunnel kilns or shaft kilns or rotary kilns. So kiln is nothing but it is one type of furnace. So we are placing the final refractory materials in the kiln. Kiln is nothing but it is like a oven or it is like the furnace. So which can bear the more temperature. So firing temperature is around 1480 degrees centigrade for high fired super duty bricks, 1700 degrees centigrade for kaolin bricks and 1870 degrees centigrade for basic bricks. So these are the temperature variation for the different types of bricks. Yes, that is in the firing process. So these are the continuous steps in the manufacturing of refractories. So the first step is the crushing. What we are doing in the crushing? In the crushing, we are taking the lumps of the raw material and making it into 25 mm size of the raw material. And in the second step, the grinding. In the grinding, we are placing the meshes and grinding all the raw material. So whatever we have taken in the crushing process, that we are grinding in the grinder. And in the third step, screening process, the screening process is nothing but removal of unwanted impurities by the three continuous steps, that is the settling, magnetic separation and the chemical methods. And the fourth step is the storage. So after the crushing, grinding and the screening process, we are placing the raw materials in the big buckets or the big bins. And the fifth step is the mixing. In the mixing, we are mixing the raw material with the plastic or any other material to increasing the molding capacity. And the sixth step is the molding. In the molding, we are molding the raw material and the plastics into desired shape either by using manually or by using mechanically. So in the manual process, we will get the low strength and the low density refractory materials. But whereas in the mechanical molding process, we will get the high strength and the high density refractory materials. But to increase the strength and the density of the material, we must do the de-airing process. In the de-airing process, either by using the single pressing process or by passing the air, and by double pressing process, we can do the de-airing process. De-airing process is nothing but removal of air inside of the raw material. And the second step is the drying. After molding, we can dry the refractory material which we mold. And the last step is the firing process. After drying, we must do the firing process at more than the temperature of the refractory material to get the desired shape of the refractory material. So this is manufacturing of refractories. Yes, so with this we have completed almost the third unit. We have only one topic left in the third unit. So just let us recall the polymers. So let us see the polymers. So classification of polymers. Classification of polymers are very, very important here. And after classification, just let us see the synthesis. We have only two syntheses here. So classification of polymers. Polymers are classifying into natural and the synthetic polymers. But we have the three types of polymers. One is the natural polymers, semi-synthetic polymers and the synthetic polymers. So we know what is meant by the natural polymers. Natural polymers are nothing but the polymers which can be synthesized in the nature. And but whereas synthetic polymers are nothing but which are synthesized in the laboratory. And based on the structure of polymers, the polymers are classifying into three types. One is the linear, branched chain polymers and the three-dimensional polymers. The linear polymers are nothing but if the monomers are arranging in the straight chain manner, that is called the linear chain polymers. And in the branched chain polymers, one of the monomer is bonding as a branches and another monomer is forming as a straight chain, that is called the branched chain polymers. And in the three-dimensional polymers, various number of strands are linking with each other. So all the linear chain polymers are linking with each other in the three-dimensional polymer. So that is the classification of polymers based on the chain structure. But based on mode of polymerization, additional polymers and the condensational polymers. Additional polymers are nothing but the polymers are synthesizing by adding the monomer units. If the same monomer units are adding with each other for n number of times, that is called the homopolymerization. If the two different monomers are adding with each other to synthesize copolymerization, that is called the copolymerization. And homopolymerization means two monomers are adding with each other. Those two monomers are the same monomers. But in the copolymerization, two different monomers are adding with each other. But condensational polymers are nothing but these polymers are synthesizing after by removal of water molecule. That means by elimination of any small molecules, these condensational polymers are synthesizing. Not only water molecule, even the small molecules like hydrochloric acid, ammonia, these are removing in the condensational polymerization. So that is additional polymerization and the condensational polymerization. And based on the interaction between the monomer units or based on the intermolecular forces between the monomer units, polymers are three types. One is called the elastomers, fibers and the plastics. Elastomers are nothing but these are having weak intermolecular forces between the monomer units. But fibers are nothing but these are having very strong covalent bond between the monomer units, and the plastics are intermediate between the elastomers and fibers. That means these are having the medium interaction between the monomer units. That is the plastic. But these plastics are further classifying into two types. One is the thermoplastics and the thermosetting plastics. Thermoplastics are nothing but the plastics on heating becoming soft, on cooling becoming hard. But whereas thermosetting plastics are nothing but once setting into particular shape, these cannot be remolding. That means the thermoplastics on heating becoming soft, at any temperature these are becoming soft, so we can mold into desired shape. But whereas the thermosetting plastics, if one setting into particular shape, these cannot be remolding. That means these cannot be affected by the heat. That is the difference between thermoplastics and the thermosettings. We have seen many examples in the previous class. So this is just revision. So I am just giving the important points of the classification. And based on the monomer composition. That means maybe the monomer is a single type of monomer, or the monomer is a different kind of monomer. That means we can use the single monomer or the different monomers in the polymerization process that we have seen in the additional polymerization. Just look at this example. This is called the homopolymer because this polymer is synthesizing by repeating a same monomer for n number of times. Here the same monomer is repeating for n number of times, so this is called the homopolymer. But in the second example, this is called the copolymer because M1 and M2 are two different monomers. Two different monomers are repeating for n number of times, so this polymer is called the copolymer. So what is the difference between the homopolymer and the copolymer? In the homopolymer, the same monomer is repeating for n number of times, but whereas in the copolymer, the two different monomers are repeating for n number of times. The next classification based on tacticity. But first let us see what is meant by the tacticity. Tacticity is nothing but arrangement of functional groups on the polymer chain. So the functional groups are nothing but maybe carboxylic acid, hydroxyl, that means OH, that is alcohol group, or aldehyde, or amine group, or chlorine. These are called the functional groups. So arrangement of functional group on the polymer chain is called the tacticity. But maybe the arrangement is in the order wise or in the disorder. That means maybe in the same order or in the different order. So based on that arrangement of functional groups on the polymer chain, the tacticity is classifying into three types. One is called the isotactic, atactic and the syndiotactic polymers. Isotactic polymers are nothing but those polymers in which the functional groups are arranging in the same side. So either at the top side or at the bottom side, or at the right side or at the left side. But all the functional groups are arranging in the same side. That is called the isotactic polymers. Atactic polymers means if the functional groups are arranging in the random manner, maybe at the top or the bottom or at the left or right, anywhere. So there is no proper arrangement of functional group on the polymer chain, that is called the atactic polymers. The last one is the syndiotactic polymers. In the syndiotactic polymers, the functional groups are arranging in the alternative manner. That means one is at the top and bottom, top, bottom, top, bottom, or left, right, like that. So here the polymers, the functional groups are arranging in the alternative manner on the polymer chain. That is called the syndiotactic polymer. So this is also very, very important for the short question in the external examination. So based on the tacticity, polymers are three types: isotactic, atactic, and the syndiotactic. In isotactic, so just look at the examples. See here, in the isotactic, all the X and Y functional groups are at the same side. If X is at the left side, Y is at the right side, X left, Y right, X left, Y right, like that. So here the all functional groups are arranging in the same side in the isotactic polymer. But whereas in the syndiotactic polymer, see here, there is no proper arrangement. Sometimes maybe at the Y right side or the left side, and Y is at the right side or left side, even X also arranging in the disorder manner on the polymer chain. So that is called the syndiotactic polymer. But whereas in the atactic polymer, see here one is at the right, left, right, left. So these are arranging in the alternative manner in the atactic polymers. And the next, differences between the condensational polymerization and the additional polymerization. This is also very, very important for the short question. Condensational polymerization is known as the step growth polymerization. Additional polymerization is known as a chain growth polymerization. It takes place in the monomers having reactive functional groups. That means if the monomers are having the functional groups, then only condensational polymerization takes place. If there is no any functional group, that monomer will not participate in the condensational polymerization. Additional polymerization, it takes place only in monomers having multiple bonds. That means if the monomer is a saturated compound, there is no additional polymerization. But if the monomer is an unsaturated compound, additional polymerization takes place. Unsaturated compound is nothing but the compound is having the multiple bonds. That means the compound is having either pi bond, either the double bond or the triple bond. Only such type of compounds are participating in the additional polymerization. It takes place with the elimination of simple molecules like water, ammonia and the hydrochloric acid. But it takes place without elimination of simple molecule. So there is no elimination of molecule in the additional polymerization. But whereas in the condensational polymerization, after removal of molecules only, the polymer is synthesized. Repeat units of monomers are different. Because in the condensational polymerization, only one type of monomer is not repeating. Maybe 2 or 3 types of monomers are repeating. So the repeating units will not be same in the condensational polymerization. But in the additional polymerization, repeating units and monomers are same. And in condensational polymerization, the polymer is formed in the gradual steps. That means it is a step-by-step process. But whereas the additional polymerization is a single-step process and the reaction also very fast. The molecular mass of polymer increases throughout the reaction, but there is very little change in the molecular mass throughout the reaction. So the molecular mass will be changing and there is a lot of difference in the condensational polymerization. But whereas in the additional polymerization, there is no maximum variation in the molecular mass. And product obtained by the thermosetting and product obtained are thermoplastics. That means the product which we are synthesizing in the condensational polymerization is thermosetting, but the product which we are synthesizing in the additional polymerization is thermoplastic. So these are the examples: bakelite, polyester and the polyamide, and polyethylene, PVC and the polystyrene. So this already I explained you in the last class. So remaining we will see in the next class, that is PVC and bakelite and Teflon, and remaining topics we will see in the next class. And thank you so much.